Today we're continuing our unit on biographies, and we are going to begin by reviewing what a biography is. What characteristics does a biography have? So first, a biography is a non-fiction text. It is a true story. It's not fiction. It's not make-believe. It is true. It's based on factual information. Additionally, a biography gives information about a person who is real, not someone made up, not someone in a cartoon, but a real live person. Third, that person made an impact on society in some way. So these are the three characteristics or features of a biography. It's a nonfiction text, it gives information about a person, and that person made an impact on society. Today we're talking about key events in a biography. If we think about the strongest memories that we have so far in our lives, let's think, for example, for each of you. Some of your strongest memories might be your first day of kindergarten. It might be a family vacation. It could be a big move, maybe starting a new school. It might be something that you did exciting for the very first time. Maybe your father took you for a ride in the trailer and you pretended that it was a boat and you went all through your yard and through the fields and bouncing around and everything. That was a key event for a time when things are kind of weird outside right now and things like that. There could be all kinds of key events in your life. These are all major events that you could have had so far. So they all work together to tell your biography. Now, in between all of these big events that we just discussed about, like kindergarten, your first day of school, a family vacation, a big move, a ride in a trailer that you weren't expecting to go on, pretending that it was a boat, those were highlights of your life. In between all of those highlights or those key events, are there routine, boring stuff? You had dinner, you had lunch, you slept, you ate, you did homework, schoolwork, things like that. Now, those routine things are not usually included in a biography. Writers usually skip those routine days and tell us only about the big moments in a person's life when they're writing their biography. We're going to look back right now at the story of Sacagawea and look and see about some of the key events in her life that may have helped shape her life. As we look at Sacagawea, we first remember that readers identify the most important part of a person's life so that as a reader you can analyze how those key events shaped the person's life. Sorry. I'm not sure what I did just now, but at any rate, we're back. So Sacagawea, there were two events as I read that article about Sacagawea, the biography about her. There were two events that stuck out as I read that really impacted her life. The first was that she was born into the Shoshone tribe. She was from the Shoshone tribe. Oh, you might think, so what? What's the big deal? Actually, it's huge. It gave her a connection to other Native Americans that she may not have had when Lewis and Clark actually asked her to join them on the expedition. It meant that she could speak their language. It meant that she understood their ways of and their culture. It meant that she understood how to live as a Native American, maybe finding food. And we talked about that in social studies. Native Americans did a lot with nature. They used a lot of nature in making canoes and how to grow vegetables and so forth. So Sacagawea knew all of that. She was raised that way. The other key event in her life sounds kind of odd that I'm going to say this, but the fact that she was kidnapped when she was 12 really was a major reason why Lewis and Clark picked her to go on their expedition. Now, you're probably thinking, man, Mrs. Miller's lost her marbles. Well, the thing is, if she hadn't been kidnapped, she would never have met her husband. According to the article, Sacagawea, we found that it said after she was kidnapped, she was then taken to a French-Canadian trapper. All right, that French-Canadian trapper eventually became her husband. That French-Canadian trapper, that particular one, he was the one who actually was working for Lewis and Clark. He was the one that they went to get him to come with them on their expedition. Now, if she hadn't married him, she would never have met Lewis and Clark because she happened to be in that area in North Dakota only because that's where her husband was. So if we look at all of those things, at both of those things, the fact that she was a Shoshone member and that she was kidnapped by the Hidatsa tribe when she was 12, which led her to meeting her husband, which led her to then meeting Lewis and Clark. Those things are what had to happen in order for her to be known as a woman who was so instrumental in the Lewis and Clark expedition. So if we think about those things, we're going to read an article called about a woman named Ella Baker, a little biography about her. Let's take a look at some of the one particular key event in her life. So I want you just to sit and listen carefully about Ella Baker and focus on a key event that helped shape her into being a woman who wanted to make a difference. Ella Baker. Ella Baker was born on December 13th, 1903. She grew up hearing stories of slavery from her grandmother. She remembers her grandmother telling about the time she was whipped because she would not marry a man chosen for her. Her grandmother's courage gave her the strength to always fight for what she believed in and thought was fair. She challenged schools' unfair policies throughout her educational career. She graduated in 1927 and moved to New York. In New York, she became very active in social justice reform. She believed in equality for all people. She joined many organizations, including the Young Negroes Cooperative League. She fought for justice for all people and was quoted saying, "People cannot be free until there is enough work in this land to give everybody a job." In 1957, she moved to Atlanta to help with the Martin Luther King organizations. And in 1960, after hearing about the sit-ins, she went to North Carolina. In North Carolina, Ms. Baker met with student activists. She believed the young were the stepping stones to the future. They needed a leader and someone who could help them learn about social justice. She helped young leaders and started the Student Nonviolent Coordination Committee. Through the Student Nonviolent Coordination Committee, also known as the SNCC, Ms. Baker led nonviolent protests to ensure Mississippi residents the right to vote. She believed voting was a very important freedom since the right to vote always allows people choice. She believed in having a voice to make a difference. Ms. Baker was given the nickname Fundi, a Swahili word that means a person who teaches a craft to the next generation. She continued to be active and work with social justice groups until her death on December 13, 1896. She was 83 years old. The major job was getting people to understand that they had something within their power that they could use, and it could only be used if they understood what was happening and how group action could counter violence. Ella Baker. Now that we have heard the story of Ella Baker and heard her biography, did you find there was one key event that motivated her to fight for what she believed and thought was unfair? Think about that for a moment. As we think back at the article about Ella Baker, we found that her grandmother's courage when her grandmother refused to marry a man that was chosen for her, in other words, she didn't have the choice to choose a man to marry. She was told who to marry, but she refused to do that. And Ella was so inspired by her courage that is, according to the article, that is what gave her the strength to fight for what she believed in and thought was unfair. If her grandmother hadn't had that courage and didn't have to face that and didn't tell her about it, Ella may never have grown up knowing the importance that having a voice could make. And so as a result, her grandmother's courage became an inspiration to her and motivated her to make a difference in other people's lives. So again, today we talked about key events and how they can help shape a person's life. Your person, you may not have a lot of research about a key event that shaped their person's life. On the other hand, think hard because maybe you'll find something specific. It's okay if you didn't, but that's what will help you in determining what facts to use for your biography as you do your research on it. All right, I'm going to stop the video here and you're going to go on to the next step in Schoology. Take care and have a great day. Bye, guys.